For some shooters, comparing the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 is no comparison at all. It's a gun that built Gaston Glock's empire, and the same gun, only slightly smaller. That's all there is to it. I can tell you right up front that both of these pistols are uniformly excellent and always have been, but nonetheless, each has a few advantages that can provide a slight edge over the other. If you're looking for the most effective Glock for your purposes, or you just can't decide between the two, then this is the video for you. Inside, we'll be putting the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 head-to-head and seeing how they compare. We will get straight into it. Comparing the Glock 17 and the Glock 19 on paper, these guns are extremely close in overall size, weight, and other specifications. Comparing the Gen 5 MOS version of each, the Glock 17 has an overall length of 7.95 inches, an overall height with a magazine inserted of 5.47 inches, and a width at the widest point of 1.34 inches. Loaded weight is a nominal 33.33 ounces with a standard 17-round magazine. The Glock 19 is just slightly smaller, with an overall length of 7.28 inches, an overall height with a magazine inserted of 5.04 inches, and a width that is identical to the Model 17, 1.34 inches. Loaded weight with a 15-shot magazine is a nominal 29.98 ounces. Basically, you're saving about a half inch in length and height when you go with the Glock 19. And though that does seem marginal to some folks, it does make a difference when it comes to concealability. You just have to give up 2 rounds to do it. Concerning barrel length, the Glock 17 has a 4.49-inch barrel and the Glock 19 has a 4.02-inch barrel. Again, not quite a half-inch difference. The Glock 17 will provide somewhat better velocity for any given load and ostensibly should be somewhat more accurate owing to that longer barrel and longer sight radius. But that is not as straightforward as you think. We'll talk more about practical accuracy a little later. Both the Glock 17 and 19 are the flagship 9mm pistols in the Glock stable. They serve in thousands of law enforcement agencies around the world, many militaries, and in the hands of countless civilians. Naturally, both guns have been continually upgraded to take advantage of design enhancements, new technology, and changing shooter preferences. Both guns, as mentioned, are up to Generation 5 specs with Glock's MOS optics mounting system. You'll be able to mount nearly any modern red dot sight to the slide using one of several adapter plates for the purpose. The Generation 5 upgrades include improved grip texturing, interchangeable back straps, an oversized magazine release, ambidextrous slide release, flared magazine well, forward slide serrations, and the Glock Marksman barrel, which is a significant upgrade in terms of accuracy compared to the legacy stock barrel. Now, for most shooters, I wouldn't consider an aftermarket barrel a mandatory upgrade for either the 17 or 19 anymore. And we can look at additional variations. The 17 is available in a long slide format, the 17L, which has a whopping 6.02-inch barrel. The Longboy 17L also incorporates MOS technology for optics mounting, making it a pretty wicked rig for competition use, long-range shooting, or hunting. If you're hankering for a different Glock 19, you can check out the 19X, an in-between size that has the full-size frame of the Model 17 with the shorter slide and barrel assembly of the typical 19. It also has a lanyard ring and a few other oddball options, like an all-over coyote brown finish. Ultimately though, unless you're going with a truly specialized model like the aforementioned 17L, all generations and variations of the Model 17 and 19 compare very favorably. No surprises here. The 19 is the obvious choice for concealed carry. Being slightly smaller overall really does make a big difference for comfort and concealability. The 17, in contrast, is just about the perfect duty gun. However, the comparison isn't that clear-cut. The Glock 19 serves admirably with countless police agencies as the issued service sidearm, and it has basically no shortcomings in that role. Sure, the 17 has a longer barrel and a longer slide, the latter meaning a longer sight radius, and so it is ostensibly more accurate and easier to shoot well. But in my experience, that advantage is truly negligible in all practical regards. There is one use case where the Model 17 truly stands out as the superior and obvious choice, and that is for users who have extra large hands. Even though the 19 is big enough for nearly anyone to get a comfortable, full-fingered grip on, for those folks out there who have huge meat hooks, the pinky will likely hang off the bottom of the grip and potentially interfere with reloading. In any case, it's certainly suboptimal for a gun that size if you are still dealing with a compromised master grip on the pistol. This can likewise turn into an issue if the shooter is wearing gloves in some instances. If it is a problem, the 17 is the way to go, or maybe the 19X with its slightly longer grip. That extra half inch makes a big difference in terms of real estate on the gun for getting a comfortable hold. There's more you need to know about the 17 and 19 compared head to head. But before we move on, please take a second to click like and subscribe if you are enjoying the video. Those 2 clicks help us out more than you know. Doesn't the 19 have more recoil? It depends on who you ask, and it depends on how you define recoil. Is it the perceived force upon breaking a shot? Is it the mean deviation of the muzzle or muzzle flip measured some other way? Is it merely a mathematical equation based on the cartridge chosen and the weight of the gun and its individual components involved in the recoil cycle? Breaking all that down would be a video or a couple of videos unto itself, so I will skip to the end. On paper, the Glock 19 should have more recoil, and this should be noticeable because the gun is lighter, and so with all things being equal, the shooter should perceive more force being transmitted to their hand and more movement of the muzzle. But I've got to tell you, in my more than 20 years of being professionally involved in shooting and the gun industry at large, I know a whole bunch of shooters that think the 19 is simply smoother and softer shooting than the 17. How can this be? And what's the real story if it can't be chalked up to preference alone? Personally, I think it has to do with a sweet spot, mechanically speaking, with the 19. The reduced reciprocating mass of the slide, combined with a shorter stroke and, typically, a heavier recoil spring assembly, just makes it feel, emphasis on feel, less snappy and smoother compared to the 17. This is despite, on paper, the math adding up that the 17 should have less recoil than its smaller sibling. Is this a big difference? Is it something that will matter to you? Honestly, if you are not a fairly advanced shooter already, you probably won't notice much of a difference. But I've gathered enough anecdotal evidence in my time to believe in this quirk. Isn't the 17 more accurate? Once again, on paper, the 17 should definitely be more accurate than the 19, mechanically and practically. That longer barrel should yield improved stabilization of the bullet, better velocity, and accordingly more accuracy. And the longer slide and longer sight radius should make achieving that accuracy even easier for a shooter. And yet, I don't know anyone who can push the Glock 17 farther than the 19 and do it consistently. Getting a gun down on a random rest to genuinely control all the variables might show a tiny fractional improvement in group sizes between the two guns. But with the new Glock marksman barrels and the Generation 5 pistols, both will average about 2 MOA with ammunition that they like. For anything except bullseye competition, I can't really award either pistol the win here. Both are satisfactorily accurate right out of the box, and can be made significantly more accurate with aftermarket barrels. As mentioned, when it comes to concealed carry, the Glock 19 is the obvious choice. But there are other factors to consider in regards to comfort and carryability. The shorter grip of the Glock 19 helps to prevent printing, especially when carried inside the waistband. But that shorter barrel and slide are necessarily an advantage. Counter to common sense thinking, sometimes a shorter barrel can make the gun less comfortable to carry because it provides less stabilization for the mass of the gun that is above the belt line. This can let the grip start to roll outboard, and then that shorter barrel, inside a holster or not, can start to dig into you painfully when that happens. A longer barrel does just the opposite, providing more of a keel, in the words of holster manufacturer P.H. Elster, that helps keep the gun a little bit tighter against the body and also more comfortable. Of course, it must be pointed out that if you're going with a rigid Kydex holster, you can achieve the same effect by simply dropping the Glock 19 into a holster that is designed for the Glock 17. The extra length of the holster alone will provide the same counterbalance. If you are big on customization, something else to keep in mind is that adding a compensator or other muzzle device to the end of a Glock 17 will make for a significantly longer pistol. Doing the same thing with a Glock 19 will usually just bring the overall length up to that of a Glock 17, approximately. If you're looking to maximize control or just add a threaded muzzle that protrudes from the end of the slide, you can make a great case for going with the 19 as standard, because it will offset this added length. That can also make finding compatible holsters a lot easier, by the way. So which gun should you get, and which one is better? The only true honest answer I can give you is that you should get whichever one appeals to you the most. Both of these pistols are so good and so practical that we really are getting down to splitting atoms when it comes to saying which one is better for any given purpose. But when my friends and clients ask me which one they should get, 99 times out of 100, I tell them to get a Glock 19. It's always a little bit easier to carry, and you really do give up nothing, practically speaking, in terms of shootability, accuracy, or capacity. If that same client or friend of mine has huge hands, I'll steer them towards the 19X or the 17. I stand by what I said. You won't go wrong with either, but it is excruciatingly difficult to make a case for why you shouldn't go with the 19, and that's why I recommend it the most. And that brings our comparison of the Glock 17 and Glock 19 to an end. It's hard to talk about anything to do with these guns in a meaningful way that hasn't already been covered 1,000 times. But I hope I gave you some food for thought in your selection process. So it's time for the only question that matters. Which pistol are you going with? The Glock 17 or the Glock 19, and why? Let's talk about it down in the comments. And before you go, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos here on All About Survival. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.